There are many terms used to describe entry-level variants, such as base model or poverty spec. The good thing is, not all of them have to make you feel like you settled for less. Especially this one, the Subaru Forester GT-Lite. The Forester is Subaru's compact crossover, so it rides on the same platform as the Impreza, which is Subaru's global platform, which promises increased strength, rigidity, and a lower center of gravity. This here is the GT-Lite, which is essentially the base model. But one glance at this tells you it's actually pretty well equipped. Nothing about this screams base model, or poverty spec for that matter. And when it comes to design, Subaru isn't exactly known for being artistic. They lean more towards functionality, but at least it's very well equipped, like I said earlier. Up front, you get these adaptive LED headlights with LED DRLs. You also get headlight washers, and closer inspection reveals that this has Subaru eyesight, and we'll talk a bit more about that later. The only thing that isn't LED here are the front fog lamps, but that's fine because it's suitable for all-weather driving conditions. The GT-Lite is essentially a base model in disguise because aside from getting loads of equipment, you also get this body kit, where up front you get a lot of black cladding with a silver lip spoiler below. Now, it may not be to everyone's liking, but you can choose not to have it and save 40,000 pesos in the process. Along the side, what really stands out is the huge greenhouse, which is a departure from the trend in this age of high beltlines. Again, it's function over form. The side echoes the fact that this is extremely well equipped, and it's not just because of a tacky body kit, because you actually get power folding side mirrors with repeaters. And when you open the doors, you'll see that this also has puddle lamps. Now this has to be one of the heaviest, if not the most solid feeling door in the class, and that probably has something to do with the fact that it has side impact beams. Now, the Subaru Forester GT-Lite rolls on slightly smaller 17-inch wheels, but that's fine because at least you get disc brakes front and back. Other equipment here includes roof rails and the side skirt. And I know not everyone's a fan of body kits, but at least it doesn't look like something out of the Fast and the Furious movie. Now at the back, I'm not the biggest fan of the taillight design. I feel like it's doing this, but I think this paint job does a good job in concealing that. Now part of the GT-Lite package includes a wraparound body kit, as you can see here, and a spoiler on a spoiler. Now opening this power tailgate reveals where the Forester really shines in terms of functionality and space, because here you get 520 liters of cargo capacity. But if that is enough, you can simply fold the rear seats by pressing these buttons here. They fold 60-40 to give you even more space. You also get tethering and anchor points, as well as a 12-volt socket. Not to mention a tonneau cover, which you can store conveniently underneath the floorboard. Another thing to appreciate is the fact that you get a really flat floor. There's hardly any liftover. It's non-existent. Let's go see what the rest of the interior is like. Now, if you're thinking that Subaru scrimped on the inside because they threw everything they had on the outside, think again, because simply judging by all the buttons in front of me, this interior is also really well equipped. But aside from the equipment, you also get really nice materials. There's soft touch leather on the dash and on the door cards. All touch points are extremely soft, and there's some contrast stitching to give it a bit of character. There may not be that much in the way of interior accents, but there's just enough. This interior is far from dull or boring. Now moving on to the seats, I like the fact that you can move these headrests forward. Now the bolstering isn't that aggressive. In fact, it feels kind of flat, but nonetheless it's still a comfortable space to be in. You also get power seats for both the driver and front passenger. And to make it even easier to find the best driving position, it comes with a tilt and telescopic steering wheel. Now that huge greenhouse really pays dividends here because aside from giving this cockpit an airy feel, even in the absence of a sunroof, the visibility here is spectacular. This is one of the thinnest A-pillars I've ever come across in a modern day car. The sheer number of buttons may be overwhelming at first, but they are logically placed and everything is well within reach. Ergonomics is actually really good in here. Get dual zone automatic climate control, which comes with physical knobs, which is something I always appreciate. And the settings are clearly visible on the multi-information screen. So this is definitely something you can operate while keeping your eyes on the road. The infotainment screen isn't the biggest by today's standards, but it's fairly responsive and at least you get a 360 camera, which is a nice touch. It also comes with Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. And the sound quality of the audio system is actually very good. It's not exactly bass heavy, but for anyone who's over 15 years old, I think it'll be just fine. Now moving on to the instrument cluster, you get an analog tach and speedometer, but it doesn't exactly feel dated because you also get a colored multi-information screen in the middle. Now there is another multi-information screen here on top of the dashboard, but there's no redundancy of information. In fact, the information is actually segregated quite nicely. There's also a fair amount of storage. The cup holders are adequately sized. The bottle holders are huge. And of course you get this cubby here for additional storage. There's also a phone tray over here and a USB port plus two 12-volt sockets. Now at the back there is plenty of space. And I like the fact that the seats recline quite a bit. So you're not sitting too upright. There's heaps of leg and headroom. And similar to the front, all touch points are also soft. So they didn't scrimp on the materials back there either. Now as far as amenities go, you get all the map pockets you could ever want, 2 USB charge ports, and rear air vents. So this is extremely well equipped inside out. Nothing about this screams base model. So I think it's time to get this out on the road to see if that holds true when we drive it. Most people in the market for a crossover want something that'll give them additional ground clearance and practicality without compromising the car-like driving experience. And that's exactly what the Subaru Forester delivers. However, it takes that a step further thanks to the symmetrical all-wheel drive system and X mode. And what that basically does is it delivers torque to the wheel with the most grip. So that always ensures that you have utmost traction. And that allows you to take this through a variety of road conditions. But we all know that a crossover's primary purpose is still to be a daily driver. And in that regard, there's really nothing you can complain about. The Subaru Forester is a breeze to drive. But aside from the driving convenience, if you're into spirited driving, this actually delivers quite an engaging drive thanks to its steering. The steering ratio is really quick and it's nicely weighted, so you really feel as one with the car. However, the engagement is somewhat let down by the CVT. Now, I'm a huge fan of CVTs from Subaru. Their lineartronic CVTs are actually one of the best in the market. However, you kind of feel the drone on this one because it's a bit heavier than, let's say, the Subaru XV. But nonetheless, it's still a pretty good CVT overall. So I think this is still tuned pretty much the same way the XV CVT is tuned. However, you kind of feel the drone a bit more because of the added weight. This is 135 kilograms heavier than the XV. But nonetheless, you still get those simulated gear shifts, so it brings it pretty close to a conventional automatic transmission. And I bet that 90% of the people who get behind the wheel of this thing will hardly notice that it is a CVT. In any case, as far as ride comfort is concerned, it delivers a really good ride. You can take this through a variety of pavement types or road imperfections, and it'll never be jarring. The ride is very comfortable, and yet, despite the compliance, it also feels extremely planted when you take a turn at high speed. And I think you can attribute that to the fact that this has a boxer engine, so the center of gravity is a lot lower. So under the hood, you get that boxer engine, which is a naturally aspirated 2-liter that puts out 156 horsepower and 196 Newton meters of torque. Now those numbers aren't astronomical, but for daily driving conditions, it is more than adequate. It won't provide you a spirited or exhilarating drive when you floor this thing, but again, for the most part, you really won't find yourself wanting. So overall, this may not be the most powerful crossover out there, but it's still an enjoyable driving experience. Again, thanks in part to the steering, which is phenomenal. And besides that, this offers a sense of refinement and solidity that's hard to come by in crossovers within this class. What's even harder to come by is the safety suite that you get with Subaru EyeSight. So you get neat features such as adaptive cruise control, lane sway and departure warning, lead vehicle start alert, pre-collision braking, and pre-collision throttle management. These are safety features you'd be lucky to get in top-of-the-line variants in this class. The Subaru Forester GT-Lite can be yours for 1,980,000 pesos. And I know nothing about that price screams entry level. But if you contact your nearest Subaru dealership today, you might be surprised by how much they can knock off that price. But even as it stands, this is a very well-equipped vehicle. And aside from all the bells and whistles that you also get an all-wheel drive system and Subaru EyeSight, which is something you won't find in some mid-spec or top-of-the-line variants from other brands. So with that in mind, this is still a very compelling option. Thanks for watching.